Hi, I'm David Powell. I'm the worship pastor at Commonwealth Church, and I just wanted to share just a few things that have been on my heart for the past few years. Now, I want to just start off by saying that the things I share are not exclusive to me. I know the Lord has been speaking to not only myself, but so many others across this nation about what He is doing and what He plans to do. And it's a very exciting time for us all. It all began Thursday, 19th of December 2019. It was just a regular bus journey. I was on the way to meet a friend for brunch, and as I was sitting there just meditating on the word, the Lord just began to speak to me. And He said just one simple question. He said, would you ask me for a word for your nation? And so heading into 2020, a new decade, not knowing what was about to obviously hit the world on a global stage, I said, yeah. I said, I would love to pursue a word for the nation. And so over the coming months, as we headed into, obviously, as we know, the pandemic hit not long after that, He began to speak to me about what became what was known as the Garden Revival. It was not something that I shared readily with many people. It was not something I shared with anyone actually for the first few years. And those first few years was like a cocoon. It was just time for me and the Lord to do a lot of study, to do a lot of prayer. And in that time, it was exciting to see the heritage of revival in this country. It's clear to me that we do not initiate revival. It's clear to me that we inherit revival. Generations after generations of people have been praying and seeking the Lord's face. Many of them not seeing the end of their faith, not seeing the end of their prayers for what the Lord would do in this nation. He's moved before. There are old wells all across this nation. And as I began to study over those first few years, studying the likes of Lightfoot, Hoskins, Spurgeon, and others, and how the Lord would move through their ministries and through their lives and impacting the areas in which they lived, I began to see that the Lord had a real passion for this nation, and that was the foundation upon which He was going to build. And so those 2 years, like I said, I wasn't allowed to share with anyone really until I got to a point where the Lord said to me that Judah must go first. And so I began to share just a few elements with my church worship team. And we began to pray and to seek the Lord's face about, again, like I said, this phrase, the Garden Revival, the Garden Revival. I had a note on my phone which had many scriptures and descriptions of encounters and times of prayer, things that the Lord had downloaded into my spirit over those 2 years. One long note in which He began to just show me how things may unpack over the coming decade and beyond. I began to share a few things like this with not only my church worship team, but the leaders around me and some of my other peers as well, as the Lord led me to do. And then this all coalesced into an understanding of an imagery and a picture that the Lord showed me from the scriptures, from the book of Isaiah. What He showed me was 4 chapters, Isaiah 59, 60, 61, and 62. Now, I'm not going to share the full note. Like I said, it took a couple of years worth of study to put together. But I'll share the outline of what the Lord showed me as a picture for what I believe the Lord is doing in this nation. What He showed me was in Isaiah 59, where we see the cry of the intercessor. We see that truth is falling in the streets. We see that there is lawlessness. We see that there is so much going wrong in the nation at that time. And it says that the Lord, it pained Him that there was no one to stand in the gap. So His own arm worked for Himself salvation. Okay. And then Isaiah 59 ends with this promise that when the enemy comes in, like a flood, the Lord would raise up, the Spirit of the Lord would raise up a standard and resist and push back the enemy. And then it ends with this covenant said by the Lord, "This is my covenant with you, says the Lord, that my spirit that is upon you, my word that I place in your mouth, shall not depart from your mouth or the mouth of your children or your children's children for henceforth now and forever." So we have this. We have this cry of the intercessor in Isaiah 59 as lawlessness is spreading across the nation. And then we go from Isaiah 59 and that end of promise into Isaiah 60. Isaiah 60 opens up the beautiful imagery, arise, shine. In the Amplified it says, arise, get up from the depression and prostration in which life's circumstances have kept you. Shine with a new light, for the glory of the Lord shall be seen upon you. It says that darkness shall cover the earth, indeed great darkness. Okay, so darkness is still there, like we saw in Isaiah 59. But the glory of the Lord shall be seen upon you. If you read throughout Isaiah 60, you see that there's something is arising. These people group is arising. And I believe Isaiah 60 is a picture for the emerging church. We have the cry of the intercessor in Isaiah 59, which is answered by the emerging church who arise and shine in Isaiah 60. You see the ships of Tarshish arriving, bringing with them their gold. You see how the sun's are rising up. You see how the church is being empowered to walk in that which God has always ordained for it to walk in. Then we move into Isaiah 61. Isaiah 61 is very precious. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Speaks about what I began to call the manifesto of the believer. What is a manifesto? You know, from a political campaign, a political party will have a manifesto which outlines who they are, what they're about. Isaiah 61 is the manifesto of the believer. It makes plain what we are about in this time. This beautiful exchange where we take the ashes of the people and we give them beauty, that they may be oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord. It's a beautiful imagery all throughout the chapter of this beautiful exchange as the people of God rise up into who they are. And then we go finally into Isaiah 62. Okay, so having had the cry of the intercessor in 59, the emerging church in 60, the believer's manifesto in 61, Isaiah 62 is where the Lord, there's a beautiful verse in there where it says, and I will marry myself to your land. That's the end point. The end point is that the Lord marries himself to our land. And what the Lord began to show me as I was studying these things out over those first few years of this decade was that was the plan that he had for our nation. That he would, as the cry of the intercessor went out, he would cause the church to emerge, for us to stand in our God-given manifesto, our God-given identity, to begin to see the Lord move as he has always intended to move, as his Spirit comes upon us, moves in a fresh way. And the end point of that is that he marries himself to our land. And so by 2022, 2023, I was then released to begin to share some of this with my church and the wider community. And now we're in 2025. As I entered 2025, the Lord told me that I mustn't let this year go by without putting this down on tape, as it were. And that's the reason for this recording. Because I see now at this halfway point in the decade that the Lord is beginning to honor that which he showed me, and he shows so many others around the nation. Like I said, this is not exclusive to me. I do not own the copyright on this truth, as it were. Again, we do not initiate revival, we inherit. What the Lord also began to show me is that a lot of this would take place outside the four walls of the church. And I believe that is why we're seeing a lot more of a rise of outdoor worship, outdoor preaching. As we step out into the communities and the cities around us, the Lord has taken our sound, the Lord has taken the essence of who we are in him, and he's beginning to impact the atmosphere around us, sowing us a seed into the ground of this nation so that he may marry himself to our land. He centered a lot of this word, and I can share on this in much more detail at a different time, but he centered a lot of this around his presence and a people group who will be so passionate about hosting his presence. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, how do I have access into this, what God is doing? One thing I can encourage you to do is just become a person who is passionate about hosting the presence of God. The rise of Davidic worship in this nation is beautiful to see. The rise of true worship in this nation is beautiful to see. People who are so convinced of their beloved identity that they know that life's calling is to host the presence of God, to live face to face with Him. And so having done so, and having seen Him begin to move in the way that He's moving, and I believe you can look at different things that happen in the nation, and you can say, you can point to different parts of those 4 scriptures and say, I think that's from there, that's from there, that's from there. I believe we are now emerging as a church to honour what He has placed on the inside of us, so that He may marry Himself to our land. As I said, this is the Garden Revival, and I'm so excited to see what the Lord will do. If you do want to, if this resonates with you in any way, just pray. Commit yourself to praying, commit yourself to fasting, commit yourself to seeking the Lord's face, that He will continue to do that which He started to do. We will finish this. We will see the Lord move in our time. And one thing I know, because I saw this in a time of prayer last year, the Lord will cause us to be the generation that doesn't look away. We will be the generation that, if we are faithful to what He's entrusted to us, we will be able to gaze upon His face and not look away, and therefore successfully pass this on to the generation that comes after us. And in doing so, we will see this nation transform forevermore. Guys, it's been a pleasure to share this with you, and God bless.